Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a very modern rebellion, the choice to just stop. And we're going to see how the justification for it might actually come from a surprisingly ancient source, Confucius himself.
So if you're feeling completely burned out by this relentless, crushing pressure to always achieve more, to climb higher, to just work harder, chances are you've been told that's on you, that your exhaustion is some kind of personal failure, that you just don't have what it takes. The official narrative, especially in a lot of East Asia, loves to frame this burnout as a moral failing. It's painted as this lazy rejection of the traditional Confucian work ethic, a betrayal of the very values that built entire nations.
But what if that isn't the whole story? What if the very founder of that tradition, Confucius, actually laid out a totally different path? A path that basically gives you permission to opt out. Okay, let's get into it.
First, to really understand this rebellion, we have to grasp the reality for millions of young people across East Asia right now. And honestly, that reality is just defined by exhaustion.
I mean, it's a world of hyper-competition that starts practically from birth. You've got the grueling 996 work culture, that's 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week, and the immense, life-defining pressure of university entrance exams, like the Gaokao. The whole system is designed for one thing: total exertion.
And this has created this widespread feeling of what's called Neijuan, or involution. Just picture a social rat race where you have to run faster and faster, putting in more and more effort just to stay in the exact same place. It's a competition with worse and worse returns, and it really feels like a trap.
And all along, the official story is that this is a noble sacrifice, that it's your duty to the collective. But where did this specific idea of endless, necessary struggle actually come from? Well, the answer lies in a debate that's over 2,000 years old.
To understand the system today, we need to go way back to a foundational argument about the very nature of humanity itself, a philosophical clash between two of Confucius's most important followers.
You see, they were split on this absolutely critical question: are we born with an innate goodness, or are we born as chaotic, self-interested beings who need to be corrected? The answer to that question, it turns out, shapes entire societies.
This led to two completely different worldviews. On one side, you had Mencius. He believed that every single person is born with these innate sprouts of goodness, like tiny seeds that just need to be watered and nourished. But Xunzi, he argued we're all born like crooked wood, warped, twisted, and selfish, and then we have to be steamed and violently bent into a useful shape.
And what's so fascinating is seeing how these ancient metaphors translate directly into our modern systems. Mencius's whole philosophy of nourishing those little sprouts, that leads to things like progressive education and humanism. But Junzi's crooked wood? Well, that becomes the perfect justification for rigid discipline, for rote memorization, and for absolute authority.
To prove his point, Mencius used this really powerful thought experiment. He said, look, if you see a child about to fall into a well, you are going to feel an immediate, instinctual flash of panic and compassion. You don't do a cost-benefit analysis, you just feel it. And for Mencius, that feeling right there is proof of our innate goodness.
Xunzi completely disagreed. He argued that any goodness we show is purely artificial. It's the result of conscious activity. For him, morality isn't built in. It's an external technology, basically a set of rules and rituals that we invent to save ourselves from our own selfish impulses.
So, how did this big philosophical debate play out? When we look at our modern, high-pressure systems, you really have to ask yourself, which of these two philosophies seems to have won?
Today's cradle-to-cubicle pipeline, with its intense focus on rote memorization, these punishing exam schedules, the all-consuming 996 work culture, it aligns almost perfectly with Xunzi's philosophy. It's a system that is built to steam and bend that crooked wood into shape.
And you know what? This has corrupted the very purpose of learning. It's transformed it into what scholars call wiring, which means learning not for your own growth or understanding, but purely for the sake of others. To impress society, to pass the exams, to get a good job. It's learning for external validation, and that's it.
And here's the crucial part. This is a total distortion of the original Confucian ideal. The whole point was supposed to be Weiji, learning for the sake of the self. This was about genuine moral and spiritual transformation. It was about cultivating your own character, not just polishing your resume.
Which brings us right back to the modern rebellion against this relentless system. And, surprisingly, to a really powerful justification from the sage himself.
Faced with all this pressure, many young people are choosing to lie flat,
or Tangping. They're just opting out. Now, the dominant narrative calls this shameful, lazy, and totally un-Confucian. But is it?
Not according to Confucius. I mean, in his own words, right here from the Analects, he gives a really clear instruction. He says, if the system is just, if the way is working, then by all means participate and serve. But when the system has lost its way, when it's exploitative and unjust, the principled, moral response is to withdraw, to retire.
And this just gives us a brilliant new way to see this whole movement. From a classical Confucian perspective, Tangping isn't some moral failure. It's the ultimate act of integrity. It is a principled retreat from a system that has become corrupted and has, itself, lost the way.
This reframes the entire narrative. It suggests that those who choose to lie flat might not be failures at all. In fact, they might be a new kind of modern hero. Confucius's ideal person was the Junzi. Now, this originally meant son of a lord, but Confucius completely revolutionized it to mean an aristocrat of character. Your nobility wasn't based on your bloodline, it was based on your moral choices and your integrity. A Junzi preserves their integrity above everything else.
So, we're left with this final thought. In a society that has largely adopted Xunzi's philosophy, a system built to bend you into shape, perhaps the most authentic act of personal growth is to simply refuse to bend. Maybe lying flat is the truest expression of Mencius' philosophy, protecting those innate sprouts of goodness by giving them the quiet space they actually need to grow.